Good morning, everybody. Hope that you guys are having a wonderful morning. My name is JD Bride, and I'm Deputy District Director for Congressman Tom Kean. Congressman will be on shortly. We're here doing an AFG seminar with our partners at FEMA. So before we do anything, I'm going to kick it over to Congressman Kean to start off our webinar.
Good morning, and a very warm welcome to all of you, and thank you for joining us today. I'd like to welcome you all to the 2024 7th Congressional District FEMA and Assistance to Firefighter Grants webinar. Today, we're gathered to break down the AFG program, understand the awards process, and assist with developing your grant applications. What I hope will emerge from today is a greater understanding of how FEMA and AFG grant process works so that you are able to successfully acquire these funds, responsible for assisting with equipment and training upgrades. In these challenging times, it is paramount that we prioritize the safety of our local communities and our first responders so that we may ensure an environment where those who put their lives at risk to protect the public are adequately supported, equipped, and empowered to carry out their duties. By addressing and mapping out the grant process, we are not only safeguarding the well-being of our neighbors and our communities, but also creating a safer, more effective firefighting force. Firefighters are our first responders to danger and in the background, keeping our communities safe. As a former volunteer firefighter EMT in Hyattsville, Maryland, and a volunteer with the Westfield Rescue Squad, I know the hardships and the sacrifices the firefighters make to daily and quickly respond to emergencies in their communities. I am proud to lead the Fire Grants and Safety Act to ensure that you, our firefighters, and our first responders are well equipped with the proper training and equipment to continue to protect our communities. This legislation will reauthorize vital federal government grant programs for local fire departments, which will help protect families in New Jersey and nationwide. Understanding the challenges you face, this legislation seeks to renew and to strengthen the crucial grant programs that provide unwavering support to you, our protectors. The Fire Grants and Safety Act presents a significant opportunity to provide a 5-year reauthorization for 2 critical programs: the Assistance to Firefighters Grants, AFG, and the Staffing and Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grant, SAFER programs. Additionally, it increases funding levels for the U.S. Fire Administration. By advocating this multi-year reauthorization, we ensure the continuity and stability of these programs, enabling the Fire Administration, AFG, and SAFER to continue the vital work in equipping, training, and staffing our departments effectively. My legislation serves as a strong commitment to the safety and the well-being of our first responders in the communities you all serve, reinforcing our dedication to your ongoing success and the preservation of public safety. I am hopeful that by the end of this discussion, you will be well equipped with the resources necessary to utilize these grant funds with ease. Thank you all again for the strong commitment you have made to our neighbors, to our communities, and the greatest state in the Union, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you, Congressman. And again, thanks everybody for being here today. We've got 42 folks attending. I would love to now introduce our great partner from FEMA, Alvin Matthew. Thank you so much for joining us and walking us through AFG.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, JD, and thank you, Congressman Kean, for setting this webinar up today. AFG is a fantastic grant program for all of our first responders and our frontline firefighters and EMS personnel. Just like Congressman Kean, I am a volunteer firefighter as well. I've been a volunteer firefighter for about 17 years now. It's a great sacrifice. It's a great calling, and I definitely enjoy it. And the best part about my job is that I understand AFG through the eyes and through the lens of a firefighter, but also through the lens of FEMA as well. So I understand it from both perspectives. So I'm always here to help out. I'm always here if you have any questions or concerns, or if you need anybody to talk to you about AFG, please give me a call or text me or email me. I'm always here to help out. All right, so without further ado, I'm going to get started on the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Hey, JD, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, I can.
Okay, you don't see any notes or anything on there, right? It's
Nope,
just the,
just these slides.
great, all right. All right, this is a great turnout. We got 41 guests. Amazing, I like it. All right, so welcome everyone to the 2023 version of the Assistance to Firefighter Grants Application Development Workshop. All right, for some of the folks that are with us today, you have your seasoned AFG veterans that have joined us on previous webinars in the past. You're going to notice some of the slides are similar, and so forgive me if some of this is repetitive, but I really would like to hit on and highlight some of the most important information for the 2023 application. So when you do apply, you will have the proper tools to help guide you through the process. All right, so this presentation, after this presentation is done, I'm going to email the slides and a few helpful tips and tricks to help you start applying for the application. So I'm going to email that to JD afterwards. All right, here are the dates for the 2023 application. The application period started on January 29th, and the end date, it will be on March 8th at 5 p.m. All right, so the first thing that I want you to know is help is always available to you throughout the entire process. As you can see, you have plenty of resources to choose from. One resource is the Regional Fire Program Specialist, which is me for Region 2. There is at least one in every, one in each of the 10 different regions in FEMA. Region 2, that's us. It's comprised of New York, New Jersey, Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. The next option is the AFG Help Desk. It is staffed daily by fire service professionals that know the program inside and out. And finally, there is a link to our website where you can download helpful user guides to develop the application and your narratives. All right, as I mentioned in the previous slide, help is always available. Aside from myself, there are 3 important numbers you will need. All right, first up is FEMA Go. If you do not have a FEMA Go account, you cannot submit an AFG application. The application itself is located within FEMA Go. So you want to log into go.fema.gov and create an account. This is where you will submit your AFG application. All right, so the one thing that they don't allow us FEMA folks or AFG folks is to unlock accounts, reset passwords, or create accounts, all that fun stuff. You're going to have to call that number on the screen, the 1-877-585-3242, and call that number to ask for technical assistance regarding unlocking accounts and passwords. The next up is SAM.gov. It's very important that you stay on top of your SAM.gov account. The account expires every year. If it's been a while since you logged in, log in and take a look at your account. If you've got your account or if you've got your username or password, call that number to get it updated. Just like FEMA Go, I don't have access to SAM. SAM is a completely different agency, a federal agency that monitors and looks after SAM. It's run by GSA. But most importantly, you don't want to have an expired count when you apply. If you let it expire, it can take anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks or sometimes even more to renew your account. The Congressman and FEMA wants to get you your money into your account, but we can't do that if your SAM account is not active. So please go in and activate your account. And finally, like I mentioned earlier, the AFG Help Desk. You can call the help desk and ask any questions on the AFG application or its process. The help desk is staffed by fire service professionals that know the program inside and out thoroughly. So for today's program, I'm going to provide an overview of AFG, give a brief discussion on the award process, developing the application, and most importantly, developing your narrative. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to help you successfully pass the scoring levels. For some of the newer folks here who never applied to this program or never even got an award before, I think it's important to understand the process of AFG. I'm really going to hit hard on the narratives. You're gonna get tired of me constantly saying no fo and high priority because it's really that important. There are 3 different firefighter grant related programs. All right, how much money is available and which program gets what? This slide shows you what you're competing for, what's on the table, and essentially what's up for grabs. Later on, I'm going to break down who gets what. For the 2023 application, there is roughly $720 million available nationwide, and it's split between each grant program. All right, you have the AFG program, which is the Assistance to Firefighter Grants. That's me, and that's what we're going to discuss today. This program has around $324 million in pot. You have your SAFER program, or the Staffing for Adequate Fire and Emergency Response Grant Program, which helps departments staff recruit new members. This has a pot of $360 million. And finally, you have the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Program to help bolster fire prevention activities, which has a pot of $36 million. All right, it's important for you to know who's eligible for AFG, who can apply, and who you'll be competing against. All right, this also goes for SAFER and the FP&S grant awards as well. Fire departments and fire districts, whether you're a full-time paid, volunteer, or you're a combination, you report to NIFRS, you're eligible to apply for the AFG grant. For non-affiliated EMS organizations are eligible as well. If you provide medical and transport like an ambulance corps or rescue squad, you're an EMT or a paramedic, and you're not affiliated with a hospital, a fire department, or a university, you can apply. If you are a public or nonprofit 501c3 or 501c4, you can apply as well. And finally, you have your state fire training academies. All right, so for most of us here, this does not apply to you. However, every single state fire training academy in the country is eligible for an award, unless the state does county-based training. So all that money I just spoke about earlier, this diagram, this little lifesaver right here shows how that is broken down, spread out, and who's getting what. I think it's important for you to know that career, combination, and volunteer fire departments all get equal share of no less than 25% of all that money. I emphasize no less because that number can jump up through open competition, right? Again, so 25% goes to career, 25% goes to volunteer, 25% goes to combination departments. That's 75% spread evenly between career, volunteer, and combination. All right, so we break down a little further. You have state fire training academies that only compete with each other, only get 3% of that money. FP&S makes up 10% of that award, and then non-affiliated EMS will get no less than 2%. And lastly is open competition. This makes up 10% of that money. This means that 10% will be spread out based on the best application, regardless of where they came from. And then we will add it on top of the 25% that's already there. So that 25% for volunteer, career, and combination departments can go up in percentage points based on open competition. All right, it's important to understand if you get an AFG award, you're on the hook for a local share or a non-federal share. It's a percentage. This percentage is based on population size, so it can vary. So this means, for example, if your population is 20,000 or less, FEMA will pay 95% out of the bill, and you have to come out of pocket 5%. If the population is between 20,000 and 1 million, that percentage increases to 10% out of pocket. And those big metropolis cities, the New York cities or your Boston, where the population is more than 1 million, that percentage out of pocket is 15%. All right, just a quick note about the criteria development panel. I'm going to talk a lot about priorities. Now, I'm going to talk a lot about high priority, medium priority, and low priority items. It's very important for you to know that FEMA does not determine any of those priorities of a firefighter or EMT. It's the criteria development panel that determines those priorities. And it's made up of the nine major fire service organizations that you see on the screen. All right, so these organizations are made up of first responders just like yourselves. They will determine what are the high, medium, or low priorities. And then us FEMA, we'll take those priorities under consideration. If you have any questions on the CDP, or you would like to be part of that panel, I would encourage you to reach out to your affiliate program on the list. All right, this section, we're going to discuss the award process, and I'm going to just go over the NOFO. All right, just like any grant that FEMA administers, AFG has a life cycle. The Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, is the first step in the AFG or the grant's life cycle process. The NOFO is a very important document that outlines the priorities of the AFG award. The NOFO identifies the next step. It identifies when the application period starts and when it ends. All right, as I mentioned earlier, the 2023 application period opened on January 29th, and the deadline on the last day will be on March 8th. Once you submit the application, we will go on to the next stage, the electronic scoring stage, where a computer will screen all applications, and based on an algorithm, it will compare various criteria. All right, a lot of these questions are weighted, so they have a point value. What you select in the drop-down menu will accumulate points. The more points you get, the higher your electronic score or electronic pre-score will be. If you score high enough in the pre-score, you then advance to the next stage, which is the peer review panel stage. If you do not score high enough here, this is where your application will be eliminated. It will never make it to the peer review panel stage, and then the technical review stage, and you will not get the award. All right, the most important point here is to really focus on the high priority items marked in the NOFO. I will go over these high priority items in the next few slides. You're going to get tired of me constantly repeating the words NOFO and high priority because, again, like I said, it's really, really that important. I want to stress that the high priority items will score you the most amount of points. High priority items will put you in control of the program. There are other items that you cannot control, such as age of equipment or call volume. That's all weighted and it has its own set of points. For example, if you're trying to replace your bunker gear, your Morning Prides or your Globe Extremes, and they're only 7 or 8 years old, you will only get a very low electronic pre-score. You will probably not make it to the peer review panel stage. All right, so these are some of the items you cannot control, and I want you to know about it, especially when determining what to ask for. And what you ask for should already be pretty old. Again, the older the items, the better and the more points you can get. All right, so once you make it to the peer review panel stage, it's exactly what it sounds like, a panel of your peers. The panel is made up of a bunch of first responders. The application you put together will go into a conference room, and this panel will read over all the applications and narratives. And by the end of the day, or by the end of it, they will either recommend you to FEMA or not recommend you to FEMA. If they do recommend you to FEMA, then the application will go on to the next stage, which is a technical review stage. So in the technical review stage, the only thing that FEMA does in this stage is to determine if you are an eligible candidate. We're not going to evaluate you for points. We just want to know you are who you say you are, that the information you put in matches the information that's available to us. For example, all right, you put in for a new apparatus and you say your current engine or ladder is 35 years old. In the application, we will ask you for that VIN number. So we will search the VIN number of the apparatus and make sure the apparatus is 35 years old and not 15 or 20 years old. So once we go past technical reviews, we send out the awards, which usually takes about 12 weeks to process. And after that, we go right back to the beginning. And once again, the NOFO is published, and then we start all over again. with the application for the new year. And I stress how important it is to comb through the NOFO, through the NOFO document and understand what's being asked. In your application, if you put anything with a red H, a high priority item, you will get the highest amount of points for what you asked for. If you put anything with the blue M, a medium, or a low, the gray L, the application will be dead in the computer pre-score process. All right, just to remind you again, that FEMA Go is where the application is located, and that's where you will be submitting the application. So please go on to go.fema.gov to start the process. And now we're going to go on to do a little brief on FEMA Go. All right, this is just a login screen. If you're unfamiliar with this screen, you got to get start cracking. All right, I'm not going to go into too much details with FEMA Go. If you need any help with FEMA Go, or if you need help navigating FEMA Go, I can send you over some helpful step-by-step user guides. If you are with FEMA, if you are familiar with FEMA Go, if you are familiar with this screen, that's awesome. It just gets through the most of the bulk of the problems. All right, so this is the first thing you'll see when you log in. You see that screen on you see that red circle on the right? Click on that, and this is where you start your application. All right, I'm going to talk about the process of applying. All right, this begins with figuring out what it is you're going to ask for and to start preparing and developing your application. So now we know what you need to apply. You need your FEMA Go account. You need your SAM.gov account. All right, now let's talk about how to plan and prepare. All right, this does not only apply to AFG, but also to SAFER as well, especially when you get to your narratives. You want to make the application as attractive as possible to the peer review panelist. One of the most important parts of this phase is to determine what it is you're going to ask for. All right, so before you start the application, I want you to conduct a risk assessment. This will go a long way. As a matter of fact, we want you to mention you did a risk assessment in your narrative, especially with how the risk assessment is going to make your application more attractive. In the end of the risk assessment, you'll want to develop a list of items that you need, and you need to prioritize those items. All right, so just walk around your department, take a look at your inventory, make a list of all the stuff you have, your oldest turnout gear, your oldest SCBA, your oldest extrication tools, stuff that's broken or inoperable, stuff that eats away at your budget because you have to keep getting it repaired. Then open the NOFO and compare your list of priorities to the priorities of the NOFO. Make sure you focus on the items in the NOFO that have the red H, the high priority items. So what this means, let's say your priority, you did that risk assessment, your priority is a washer and dryer, your SCBA, and ballistic PPE. And you put in for a washer and dryer, SCBA, and ballistic PPE. That washer and dryer and SCBA are high priorities in the NOFO. But unfortunately, the ballistic PPE is a medium or blue M. So since this is not a high priority item, your application will die at the computer pre-score stage. It will not progress to the next stage simply because you put down that one medium priority item. It's going to end your application. All right. I just want to reiterate, you put anything on the application that has a blue M or gray L, we'll see you next year. I cannot stress enough to check and double check the NOFO. If it's not in the NOFO, then forget about it. AFG is meant to give you basic firefighting and EMS equipment, none of that cutting edge and latest technology. All right, so when you prepare your application, you want to make a list of your critical infrastructures in your jurisdiction. You do it now because when you log in to start the application, you already got it. You're going to be accessed in the application as well. Now, so critical infrastructure, what are we talking about? We're talking about schools, universities, hospitals, power plants, roads, bridges, tunnels, anything that's considered a hazardous environment during a disaster, put that in there. FEMA is in the disaster world. If there's a disaster, you need to ask yourself, what critical infrastructure am I protecting that is considered a hazard? All right, for example, if there is an earthquake, what critical infrastructure would get impacted the most? Would it be the roads? Would it be the bridges? Would it be the hospitals, the public areas? That's what FEMA wants to know. All right. You're also going to need to know your call volume. This goes out to all fire departments. All right, so for non-affiliated EMS, we don't really necessarily require. You can put it in there, but we don't require it. So we will be looking for call volume numbers from the last 3 years. So you have 2023, 2022, and 2021. So you go on NIFRS and you put in the numbers from the last 3 years. Grant writer fees. You're absolutely allowed to hire a grant writer. We will reimburse grant writer fees for up to $1,500 if you are awarded. Let's say if you hire a grant writer and you paid the grant writer, but you did not get the award, we will not reimburse you for the grant writer. Also, we will only reimburse your grant writer fees if you put in for the application and you get awarded. So you have to put it in an application. All right, there are 3 different types of AFG applications you can submit or you should submit. It doesn't hurt to submit all 3 applications. You have your ops and safety application, your vehicle application, and your regional applications. If your ops and safety application is $75,000 or less, you can submit it as a micro grant. It will get you more points. If it's more than $75,000, you are not eligible for a micro grant. Right. Non-affiliated EMS agencies, you're also allowed to submit all 3 applications. State fire training academies, you can request many of the same things. However, they have their own separate applications. Sorry. Oh, and just to remind you, I will be sending over the recording and the presentation to JD after the presentation is done. Oops. All right, so now we're going to talk about the ops and safety application. So within the ops and safety application, there are 5 line items you can put in for. You can ask for something in the equipment category. You can ask for a PPE category, modifications of facilities, wellness and training, and wellness of fitness, and then training category. Each one of those items moves separately during the scoring process. And you can ask for as many of these line items. However, that's if you have time to develop your application. If you do have time, then by all means do so. My advice, try to put in and focus on the highest risk items in your inventory because you will apply for all of these items in the same application. All right. So each item will require its own navigation, or I'm sorry, each item will require its own narrative. I'd rather you not get bogged down on 10 different items and just focus on, and 10 different narratives, but just focus on the items you really need the most. All right, here's a screenshot of the equipment priorities in the NOFO. So you notice the red H for a nozzle, which identifies a high priority item, and the blue M, like the fit tester, which is a medium priority item. Again, as I mentioned earlier, you choose any item that's marked as a blue M, your application will be eliminated. All right, so just a heads up for FY23, if you see the line items, the air compressor and cascade systems, the priorities has changed for individual applications from high to medium. However, it still remains the same. It still remains a high priority item for regional applications. So make sure when you're determining what you're going to ask for that you can explain how receiving that item is going to have a direct effect on firefighter health and safety. First responders, health and safety is always a concern for FEMA, and it's a high priority for us. So you want to see that the money that we're going to give you is also going to benefit your health and safety as well. Age is an important part of the scoring process. The older is always better when you're considering what to ask for. You want to make sure and articulate that the equipment that you're purchasing will benefit other organizations, such as your mutual aid partners and their communities as well. After you identify what items you need, you will be asked a follow-up question regarding its purpose. Answers to the follow-up purpose question will make or break your application. This means when you choose the item you are requesting, you will be asked the purpose for or why you are requesting the items. My advice here, high priority items that you're requesting has to coincide with the high priority purpose answers you choose. For example, if you are requesting equipment that you do not currently own or damaged beyond repair, you should use that first high priority bullet, which is to obtain equipment needed but not currently owned, or replace equipment that is broken and or damaged beyond repair to achieve minimum operational and deployment standards for existing missions. If you're requesting to replace equipment that is just no longer compliant, you want to use the second high priority answer, which is to replace non-compliant equipment to current standards. And finally, you see those last two bullet points, the blue M and the medium, the blue M and the gray L. You choose those options, you will not pass computer pre-score. You got to remember, always, always, always aim for the red H, the high priority answers. All right, so for PPEs, a good rule of thumb for PPEs, the older the better. This means when you're conducting that risk assessment I mentioned earlier, you want to seek out the PPE or SCBA that is at least a minimum of 10 years old or older. For PPE to be considered high priority, it must be 10 years old. Again, in order to be competitive, remember the older the better. For SCBA, it must also be 10 years old or older, but also be 2 cycles out of compliance with the NFPA 1981. All right, so here's a screenshot of PPE from the NOFO. Take a look at all the high priority items, all right? You got your boots, your gloves, helmets, hoods, pants, the complete turnout gear right there. Now take a look at the medium priority items, such as your ballistic PPE, your cam and biosuits, and wet and dry suits. You choose anything with the medium designation, your application will be eliminated, and it will not progress to the next stage. All right, again, like I mentioned earlier, I can't stress enough to check and to double check the NOFO. And remember, AFG is meant to give you the basic firefighting EMS equipment. So earlier, I discussed the do's and don'ts for the equipment purpose questions. Now I'm going to discuss the PPE purpose questions. This is important because some of you have bunker gear that's getting close to that 10-year mark. If you are requesting turnout gear for firefighters that do not have it, or if you have it ready positions on your apparatus that do not have SCBA assigned to them, you want to use the first high priority answer, which is to increase supply for new hires and or existing fire effect turnout gear or allocated seated positions. If you are requesting SCBA or turnout gear that is damaged, unusable, or unrepairable, but still in service, you will want to use the second high priority answer, which is replace in service and use damaged, unsafe, unrepairable PPE or SCBA to meet current standards. If you are simply replacing your SCBA or turnout gear to meet the current standards, you will want to use the final high priority answer, which is replace in service and use expired, non-compliant PPE or SCBA to current standards. All right, and see that last bullet point? All right, it's a low priority answer. If you choose this reason, your application will be dead and not proceed to the next stage. For your modifications to facilities, you got your direct source capture exhaust systems, your sprinkler systems, or smoke and fire alarm systems that can be retrofitted into your station. The highest priority will be given to applicants requesting a first-time installation of a source capture exhaust system. However, in order for your request to be the highest priority, the station being impacted must have sleeping quarters and be occupied 24/7. All right, training. One of the favorite things in the FEMA world is training. If you know anything about FEMA, FEMA loves its training. Training is expensive and tough to coordinate, but we will pay for it. All right, so take a look at your NOFO. See if there's any training in there that you want to send your staff to. You got training, for example, you got training such as Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, BFO, HEMFRO, Fire Officer, FAST, BLS, ALS, EVOC. FEMA will pay for it. Just an important note, in order for your training to be a high priority, it must be led by an instructor that is certified to provide that training. All right, as I mentioned earlier, another item to consider are micro grants. All right, micro grants are a pretty neat option and it's very popular. Micro grants are an option under your ops and safety application. A micro grant is a request that is less than $75,000. It can be for any one of the 5 listed activities. All right, so just a note, micro grants are an option. If you apply for a micro grant under any of these activities, your PPE, equipment, training, it then becomes your ops and safety application. All right, for example, you cannot apply for a micro grant PPE washer that's less than $75,000 and do a second application to request SCBAs. Micro grants are intended to help applicants that have not been successful in the past. For each micro grant application, the system will look back over the past 5 years to determine if the applicant has been successful or not. If they have not been successful, the applicant may receive up to 3 additional points towards their pre-score. It's all depending on how many times they've applied before and how many times they have not received an award. Micro grants only compete with other micro grants, which is a great thing as well. Now we're going to discuss vehicle acquisitions. All right, for vehicles, a lot of people are interested in vehicles. I know I would be if I can get it free through AFG. Why not? Well, that's just the issue, that so many people are interested in it, and AFG gives out so few each year. All right, so which it makes it for a really competitive application. I think somewhere last year's application, I think the turn down rate for for vehicle applications was around 80%. Vehicle acquisition is a high priority item, and it's meant to replace unsafe vehicles. If the vehicle you're trying to replace has a cab or open cab or a jump seat, it's 25 years old or unsafe, you got a great chance. If the vehicle is 15 years old or younger than that, good luck with that. The vehicle program is super competitive and the turn down rate is so high, but it doesn't hurt to apply. It's a separate application. So you can submit the ops and safety application and include the vehicle application as well, and just see how it goes. And the final application type is regional requests. So I mentioned regional requests before. You could get together with your mutual aid partners, and mutual aid is a big sticking point with FEMA. We love to see that you're providing the service to other communities. So please put mutual aid anywhere in the application, anywhere you can in the narratives. Regional grants are attractive to us because it allows us to serve more communities, more firefighters, and more fire departments. A regional request is a good opportunity where you can combine the application with one or more other agencies that are requested common need. So you could get together with the surrounding departments and you could brainstorm, network. All right, talk about the mutual interest that you have. All right, for example, if you all have a common need, such as radios, and if your radios are out of date and you want to get new radios, you can go in a regional application with your mutual aid partners and apply. All right. So 2 or more departments can also request to replace the apparatus or get a new one. However, it has to benefit all the departments involved. So just because you submitted a regional request doesn't mean you can't submit an ops and safety request. You can do both. The only catch is you can't submit the same thing. You can submit a regional request for portable radios, but you can't submit an ops and safety for the same thing. you have to choose a different high priority item. So remember, there are 3 different applications you can apply for: regional applications, vehicle application, and an opposite safety application, all separate applications. All right, so now we're going to go into developing the narrative. Super important here. All right, so now that we've discussed the application types, now let's talk about developing the narrative and how it makes it stand out, how it makes it appear the most attractive, and the most compelling, and the most eye-catching to the peer review panelist. All right, the next 2 or 3 slides, we're going to talk about the narratives. All right, so you listened to my advice, you read the NOFO up and down, you asked for high priority items, and you chose the high priority answers to the purpose questions. You made it through the computer pre-score stage, and now you're at the peer review panelist stage. So now we're going to have to type up your narratives. There are 5 narratives, or 5 narrative boxes, and I'm going to talk about each box one by one. All right, so but before we start typing up the narratives, I want to give you some general advice tips here, and this can also be applied to other FEMA grants as well. The advice on this slide applies to all the narrative boxes. So we want you to write your narrative tailored to your department and your community. We want to know what is unique to you and the people you serve. So really focus on yourselves. For example, if you're going to ask for a thermal imaging camera, you want to discuss why you need it and how you use it to support your department, as opposed to what you expect is done nationally or nationwide. When you develop your narrative, you want to ask a friend, or even better, ask another first responder, another firefighter, to proofread the final product. All right, when I say proofread, I'm not saying check for grammar or punctuation, which is important, but not as important as expressing yourself as a first responder in need. So remember, the remember the peer review panel I mentioned earlier? Those are individuals made up of your fellow firefighters, of your fellow fire service members. You want to make yourself relatable to a first responder. You want to talk shop and use lingo like a firefighter, because again, that's who your audience is. And don't forget, you're expressing yourself as a first responder in need. Stay away from brand names. For some reason, FEMA does not like using brand names. So try to stick to the type of equipment, not the manufacturer that made it. And finally, you see that red H right there? A big red H? Focus on that red H. Focus on the high priority items of the program throughout your entire narrative, all 5 narrative boxes. All right, so here are the 5 boxes, the 5 narratives that you're going to have to write. 4 sections of the narratives will be scored and 1 not scored. All right. The very first narrative, the community and agency description. Even though it's not scored, don't be fooled. You're essentially giving a description of your community and a description of your agency. All right, so this is all about you. This is the first narrative the peer review panelist sees. They're going to learn about who you are, the community you serve. They're going to learn about what makes you unique. All right, this is why it's the most important box. You want to be able to captivate your audience. You want to capture their attention right off the bat. You want them to care about the remaining 4 narratives. If you do not capture their attention here, there's a good chance they may lose interest for the remaining narratives. All right. So think of it like this. Here's an example. Think of it as watching season 1, episode 1 of your series that you like or you want to start watching. You have your Game of Thrones or your Sons of Anarchy. You want to be hooked on the first episode. Otherwise, it's off to the next show. That's it. I don't care about the rest. That first show makes or breaks you watching the rest of the season. Same thing with this narrative right here, this first box. You want to be able to capture the reviewer. This narrative will convince the peer panelist to have interest for the next narrative. All right, the next narrative, project description and budget. So do you remember the risk assessment I mentioned earlier in the last few slides? This narrative is where you jot down that risk assessment that you completed. All right, this is going to score you a lot of points. You do not need to get creative here. There are 4 steps I want you to follow, right? All right, so step 1, identify your problem. All right, step 2, what is your solution to that problem? Step 3, how much will it cost? Step 4, how long will it take to complete the project? This is where you add the risk assessment. All right, so I'm going to give you an example. So the project description should sound like this, right? We did a risk assessment and we found the following problems. These items are super old and do not work anymore. The solution to that problem is to use AFG funding to purchase this piece of equipment, and that this equipment will help better protect our firefighters in our community. It will cost this amount of money, and it will get done within 2 years of the period of performance. That's it. The next narrative is the financial need narrative. So this is where you're going to convince the panelists that there is no way that you could complete this project on your own without asking for federal funds. I'm sorry to say, you're going to have to seem like you're desperate for federal funds, even if you don't want to. Also, we're going to want to see the efforts you made to make money, meaning whether it's you went through fundraising, you did bake sales, or you went door to door asking for donations. All right. Did you ask your congressman for a letter of support? What efforts did you do to try to complete this project on your own? That's what we want to know. So you want to make sure you want to put together a breakdown of your internal department's budget. How much money you have coming in, and how much money you have going out. If you want to mention if you have any capital projects eating away at your budget, we want to know about it. If you have a 30-year-old engine that keeps breaking down and you need to keep pumping money into it to get it repaired, that's something you want to put down too. You got to say what you're spending your money on, your budget money on, and this is why you can't afford to complete this project by yourself. Cost benefit narrative. All right, so this is your opportunity to show the benefits of the project as it relates to the cost. We want to know how far you can stretch that dollar. So this is where you talk about how that small amount of money FEMA is going to give me is going to help this many people in our community, how we're going to keep this many firefighters safe. You want to show how far you can stretch that dollar. All right, so this is where you want to include any mutual aid benefits. If you give us this equipment, we're going to be able to help 5 other communities in our neighboring jurisdictions. Not only is our community and our firefighters going to benefit, we're going to be able to help this other community as well, which has a huge population in addition to ours. So please include mutual aid into this. And lastly is your statement of effect. Essentially, it's just a conclusion. You're going to take the main points from the first 4 boxes. You're going to compile them into a summary, and you're going to talk about how this AFG award will help your community and firefighters. Just like the cost benefit, the statement of effect narrative is a very project-driven narrative. However, in this section, you'll want to show the benefits of the project as it relates to your daily operations. You want to describe how this project will improve operations or make your department more viable and effective. You want to discuss any reductions in risk to firefighters or the public. You want to thoroughly explain how often the equipment will be used, and when you receive it, how often will be used. You want to talk about the impacts that the project may have on firefighters or public safety or property conservation. All right, so you're at the home stretch. You completed the purpose questions, you completed the narratives, and you're ready to hit the submit button. All right, so before you hit the submit button, I strongly recommend you to take a look at these documents and resources that FEMA provides. It's also located in the AFG's website. So you go on Google and type in FEMA AFG, and it will take you to our website where all these documents and resources will be located. All right, see on your left-hand side, see where I placed a star under the self-evaluation sheets. The reason why I have a star there is because those self-evaluation sheets will be brought up during the peer review panel. we will be giving it to the peer review panelist who's going to review your narratives. So when FEMA gives a little brief, a little pep talk to the peer review panelist on how to go about in reviewing the narratives, FEMA is going to say, hey, take a look at these self-evaluation sheets. These are some of the things to look for when reviewing the narrative. So it's sort of like a cheat sheet for you guys. Also, download the narrative development document. It will give you details on creating the narrative. It will give you more details on creating the narrative than I'm talking about today. Also, there is a monthly newsletter, a monthly AFG newsletter. It would be great for you to sign up on as well. It will give updates on when the application period opens, when it closes, when you can expect to hear about your awards, and just some general AFG updates. All right. And so this concludes the AFG development workshop. So we're going to open up the floor to questions and answers. So let me go back here. All right, so I'll open up the Q&As. CJ Davis stated, why did the compressor stations and cascade systems go from a high priority to a medium priority for individual departments? CJ, just I mentioned earlier the criteria development panel. They created the priorities for this year. So they determined that the priority will be changing from high to medium. Yeah. Bob King, can I explain the full timeline from submission to award? All right, so let me go back to that slide. All right. So we're going to start off with a notice of funding. Y'all already received that. Application period started. It's going to end on March 8th. Right when you hit the submit button on the application, it's going to go into the electronic scoring stage. All right. So this is where a computer will screen all the applications, and it's based on an algorithm. And this computer will use the algorithm to compare the various criteria I mentioned. And a lot of these questions are weighted, and they have their own point value. So after the computer, the electronic scoring stage, it's going to go on to the peer review panelist stage. And again, like I mentioned earlier, this is going to be a panel made up of first responders. So you want to hit hard on your narratives as if you're talking to another firefighter. And finally, you have your technical review stage where FEMA comes around and just double checks and crosses the T's and dots the I's to make sure who you say you are. And finally, we will submit the award. All right, the next question. If a first-time applicant, can we get all accounts open immediately, FEMA and other? All right, let me go back to, actually, let me go back here. All right, so if you're a first-time applicant, you want to create 2 accounts, right? You want to create your FEMA Go account, and you want to create a SAM.gov account. It's important because FEMA Go has your AFG application, and this is where you submit it. SAM is another account that you must create because this is how we get your money into your account. It's going to take a long time. If you haven't created your SAM account, if you haven't started to create your SAM account, please submit that or start it today because it will take a few weeks to get that open. All right. Next question. Most towns are currently going through a budget process, and this grant could have significant impacts on our budget. What is a realistic time frame for this award? Once the award has gone through technical reviews through FEMA, we're going to send it out to awards, and it could take anywhere between 12 to 15 weeks. We're projecting somewhere by this May and June, you'll hear an update. But if you log into the AFG website and you sign up on the AFG newsletter, we will provide updates on when the peer review panelist stage will start. You will see those updates and when the awards will go out. All right, is a 501c3 status required for a volunteer department to be considered for an award? It is not required. If you are 501c3 and 501c4, you can apply as well, but it's not required. I had put in for last year my CBA or 20 years old. I did not fill an app on FEMA Go website. I had a grant writer who submitted everything on my information. My question is that I have to fill out the FEMA Go app for this on the website. Yes, you still have to open up an application on the FEMA Go. Again, like I mentioned earlier, that the application itself is located within FEMA Go. If you did have a grant writer fill this out for you last year, I suggest you reach out to the grant writer again. If you don't want to use a grant writer, you don't have to, but you would have to redo the process all over again on FEMA Go. I believe it should still be the same account login information as well. So you would want to log into FEMA Go and get that started. Is all the data collected in the application checklist required to complete the online application? No, it's not a requirement. It's just a recommendation. You could go in and just see what we're looking for in the checklist and just use it to your own advantage, basically. Have a ladder truck that is 21 years old now. The new truck is 36 to 38 months away. Would this be an award or not? In the NOFO itself, it states that pre-award or purchasing an item before the award has been given is definitely a no-no. Unfortunately, you would have to put in for this ladder truck once you get the approval from FEMA Go or from us on the application. So Tim, we could talk offline about this. So just shoot me an email and I'll give you more details on this. Can first-time applicants apply for microgrants or just previously? No, anybody can apply for microgrant. It doesn't have to be a first time, or it doesn't have to be somebody who's been denied in the past. It could be anybody who's got an award up to $75,000. So it's definitely a great thing because microgrants are scored separately from the regular grant itself. So you might have better odds, but you do not have to be a first-time applicant. As a municipal entity with regional first responders, do you suggest writing the grant as an individual first responder agency, or can municipalities write this on their behalf? I would recommend you write this as a first responder. The municipalities are great. They provide that technical know-how, but you would want to write it yourself because you yourself know your department, and this is basically an application for your department, right? Nobody else knows this application but yourself. Nobody else knows your department. Nobody else knows what you really need other than yourself. So I definitely would recommend you write the application, or at least the narratives. So I would write the narratives on your own, and you can submit to municipality for that checkup if you like. If anybody has any questions that would like to talk offline, again, you can always email me and text me as well.
I will. I'll put your email into the chat right now, and that would be.
Open up this. Put it right here. There we go. Here it is. All right, so I'm going to send out this slide to JD, and also I'm going to give you like a list of items as well with like user guides to help you through this process.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Alvin, I can't thank you enough on behalf of Congressman Kean, everyone who joined us today. Really appreciate everybody showing up and listening to this very important information. Hopefully, again, I just want to reiterate, we are not alerted if you have put in an application. So if you would like a letter of support from the Congressman, please, please, please reach out to our office. We're happy to do that for you. Just, we have to know before we can write the letter. So send us that information, and that will be very helpful to us and helpful to everybody to get the process done. So again, Alvin, thank you so much for being here, for presenting this information, and for being a resource to all of our constituents in this community, because again, you know, we've got a lot of great first responders, a lot of great firefighters, and we need to make sure that they are getting the resources that they need. So I really appreciate all of
Yeah,
your
of
help.
course.
James, we have one. Do we request the
No.
letter of support before submitting? No, you can submit the application and then request the letter of support. So.
Oh, I
Excellent.
think, okay, this is a chat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much, JD, for putting this together today. It was an absolute pleasure for me. I take AFG very seriously, and also it means something to me because I'm a first responder myself. I'm a firefighter as well. So it definitely is personal for me. So if anybody has anybody, just come to me for any questions or concerns. We'll talk it through. All right. I want everybody in this region, everybody that's going to apply, I want everybody here to get their applications in to win the award. That's my goal. So please, by
Fantastic.
all means, yeah, come in.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
All right, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of your day. And again, appreciate you joining us for this webinar.
Take care.